GM3 hunts out the locos other programs fail to reach. Well, that's not strictly true, but it does only feature machinery built in the 1950s and 1960s, which can still be found working on the British railway network in the second decade of the 21st century. Here, for example, 2302 and 301 bring the latest batch of London Underground S stock into Melton Mowbray. Like all the others, this train originated from the old Dalby test track and will reverse here before 2304 and 305 continue to Amersham. The traditional term freight train has for years covered everything on the railway that looks vaguely industrial, even when there appears to be rather more train than freight. Nuclear flask workings are a good example, like this Barclay to Crewe Nuke X worked by DRS Old Girls 37601 and 611. I expect you know this is the Licky Bank. DRS has rather more oldies than most. It's a sort of railway care home. Two more of the inmates, 37259 and 218, pass Hadamore with Dungeness to Crewe spent fuel rods. Another northbound working from Barclay at Coley behind 37682 and 194. Sizewell's rods travel cross-country to the West Coast Main Line and eventually pass through Rugby. 37601 and 603 head north. The older members of Her Majesty's locomotive fleet are often first choice for the short-term freight flows, like the 47s on the Ribblehead to Chirk Logs contract. "739 leaves the yard at Ribblehead and heads north for the first part of its journey, but only so it can run round at Blea Moor. After switching ends, 739 crosses Ribblehead's famous viaduct. Class 08s still get the occasional chance to strut their stuff, but in slightly fewer numbers than the 1960s. DB Schenker's 08711 shunts cargo wagons at Didcot. The Sheerness to Tyne scrap train provides plenty of interest, especially when powered by a pair of Vulcan's Type 3s. This is Elford. The same pair, 37, 667 and 510, drag a similar working through Birmingham International. The southbound train at Syston in March 2011, 37218 and 610. Not a million miles from Syston, the Castle Cement Works at Ketton, where an 08 shunter moves wagons from the reception sidings to the works. On this particular day, 08613 is in charge of the trips. The 08 heads back to the works with a load of empties. So, loaded gets pushed, empty gets pulled. You now know everything there is to know about this shunting operation. The 37s continue to appear on the odd intermodal train for DRS. This is a Daventry to Coatbridge working, taking a platform road through Rugby behind 37059 and 611. Like the Sheerness scrap, the Washwood Heath to Boston Steel has also created plenty of interest, but with fans of Class 47. Colas Rail works this one too, well, normally. Here 739 and 749 have charge of the train at Heckington. The return run approaches Witchnor Junction behind 749 and 727. The same pair heading back to Boston at Barkston. With no coaless locos available, Riviera's 805 and 839 have the train west of Sleaford. '47, 749 and 727 reached Journey's End and reversed the steel wagons into the reception sidings at Boston. The wagons are tripped into the docks by D3761, which you may remember as 08594. A change of wagon type and a reduction in train weight has meant that a single 47 can now run the Boston Steel. 727 does just that at Nottingham, with the West Midlands bound working. Here it is again, heading south at Cossington. GB Rail Freight resorted to vintage traction when it suffered a locomotive shortage in the spring of 2011. 2301 and 302 worked this train from Whitemoor to Tallington on the 11th of April. The Tallington Works, standing alongside the East Coast Mainline, is soon to be closed down. One ancient class you can find on freight work every day is Freightliner's surviving batch of 86s. 609 and 638 work this Coatbridge to Crewe liner at Crawford. '86, 612 and Classmate head a Felixstowe bound train at Stafford. The unique 86501 is allowed out on its own. Here it is near Marks Tay with a train for Crewe from Felixstowe, which is obviously having to work via London owing to a lack of electricity in the fens. Stock moves are another good bet when hunting out the old stuff, if you know they're running. GB Rail for its contract to move new underground stock from Derby to Old Dalby and from Old Dalby to Amersham has created regular work for Class 20s. Initially the plan was to hire in privately owned locos, what you and I would probably call preserved. 2142 and 189, along with 2905 and 901 were the first, and here they're approaching Melton Mowbray from Old Dalby. You know what happens next from the opening shot of the programme. A short time into the contract, GB Rail Freight arranged a new deal with DRS to hire in 4 of its 20s long term. 2302 and 301 top and tail here with 305 and 304 as the train leaves the siding at Melton. One final shot for what somebody once called wobbling wardrobes. The train pulls into the loop at Elford. Bombardier's 08846, running as 003, spends its time shunting brand new multiple units at the Derby Litchurch Lane Works. This, for instance, is a London Overground Class 172 set. The shunter returns with only its match wagon in tow. Heading east across country to Grantham, we catch a brief glimpse of 37682 towing a DVT from Doncaster to Norwich. 4777 at Loughborough with a refurbished East Coast power car, straight out of the brushworks. Another of Colas's Type 4s, 739, heads for Barrow Hill with a Southern 4 SIG unit at North Staffordshire Junction. (47.749) approaches Honeybourne with a short rake of steel wagons, coming out of store at Long Marston and heading for Margam. (47.712) takes a rake of cargo vans to Long Marston at Rugby. Another collection of cargo vans heads from Long Marston to Sheerness behind 37604 and 603. (47.749) again, this time passing Langston Rock with track plant heading for Taunton. Similar kit at Streatley, but running from Rugby to Bescop. (47.739). DRS gets in on the track machine axe at Melton with a tamper move from Wyndham to Cardiff. But this is truly bizarre, and dare we say it's not untypical of the boys at GB Rail Freight. 73-206 trips from Tunbridge to Peterborough Yard by 66, just so it could move a solitary wagon. Heritage locos continue to appear on one-off passenger workings and the short-term affairs you get in the summer, although there aren't many as rare as this. 2304 sets off for Norwich from Yarmouth, substituting for a DMU in February 2010. 47712 brings up the rear. The 20 was soon replaced by 47832 on these workings. So here's another one from Yarmouth to Norwich, arriving at and departing from Lingwood. The same pair set off for Norwich from Lowestoft. In the summer, a 47 is diagrammed to Liverpool Street to Yarmouth trains, but forward from Norwich. 47790 heads one such working at Acle. The train loco from London, 90006, goes along for the ride. Later in the day, 90012 enjoys a trip to the seaside. Heritage locos, of course, continue to be specially hired by those desirous of travelling behind them, in the official jargon known as railway enthusiasts. 47712 and 501 top and tail, a Leicester to Carlisle charter working for railway enthusiasts at Smardown. DRS supplies the motive power for the boat trains between Edinburgh and Southampton for rich Scottish people travelling on Cunard cruises. 47810 and 501 double head one such train at Clay Mills. (47832) and 810 at Balby Bridge, with another boat train working in April 2011. The stock is Riviera's. (810) and 501 passed through Leamington in May 2011. The double heading of these trains makes a refreshing change from the usual lazy practice of top and tailing. In 2011, DRS also won the contract to operate the Northern Belle. 47790 and 832 head the train in April. This Northern Belle is leaving Stafford in May 2011, bound for Kensington Olympia, with passengers heading to the Chelsea Flower Show. (47790) on the back has been recently outshot in Northern Belle colours, which in a more enlightened time would have been called Pullman livery. West Coast fleet of 47s also turns up regularly on charter trains. Here, for instance, 47804 and 500 race through Polesworth with a tour from Norwich to Holyhead. This Derby to Sleaford special, run by GB Rail Freight, used the Stratford 47 Group's 47580. The return run sets out. Spitfire's Highlander, another one aimed at the enthusiast, heads for Scotland at Scout Green behind 37610 and 608. 73204 trundles along the Dungeness branch near Lydd with a UK Rail Tours trip. .4145 has been a regular on charters for many years, but not long after this shot was taken at Botsford in September 2010, the loco failed with traction motor problems. Repairs are progressing, but it's an expensive job and 145 is unlikely to run again until 2012. With the 40 currently out of action, Deltic 22 has been more active on the main line, and it's back running on 2 rail versions of the Napier engine. D9000 also celebrated its 50th birthday in February 2011, with a charter run from King's Cross to Waverley and back on the first Saturday in March. This is from May though, an SRPS charter from North Berwick to the Kyle of Loch Oush. The train snakes around Loch Carron at Atterdale on the outward journey. Back in England, 2308 and 309 had Pathfinder Tours Norfolk Broadsman in March 2011. 37667 on the back. And now one straight from the layout in the loft. Even the estuary looks like knobbly plastic. West Coast 37685 top and tails with a Great Western Pannier tank on one of a series of specials run over the Loo branch in Cornwall in September 2010. We round off the carriage of people section with some saloon workings. 37423 gives Caroline a push at Lapworth. And then gives her a good pull at Wilmcote. And finally, Caroline shows her flighty side at Nottingham with a different partner. 37409. Like the stock movers, the railway enthusiasts and the summer dated operators, Network Rail continues to use plenty of old stuff too. 31285 and 602 power a Bristol Temple Meads to Bristol Temple Meads test train at 7 Tunnel Junction. At Tutbury, in this shot, 285 is partnering 31465 on the structure gauging train. The privately owned 31106 is on long-term hire to Network Rail, but retains its rail blue paint at the owner's insistence, and quite right too. This is Barn Green and 4Z33, whatever that is. (106) again, heading a Derby to Lara train at Nightcote. (31233) and 602 with a Miller Hill to Derby working in April 2011. The structure gauging train again, this time at Cossington with 31233 and 465 in March 2011. Correction, Network Rail continues to use plenty of old 31s, but also has yellow 37s, renumbered as Class 97. Here's 302 and 304, arriving at, and departing from, Rugby, with a Derby to Wembley working. The same pair pass Elford. In early March 2011, 37087 was hired in to work a Derby to Derby train via, would you believe, the Welsh Marches. And why not? Later that month, the 97301 heads a Derby to Selhurst train down the Midland Main Line with 73138 on the back. 97304 and 302 past Loughborough with a Selhurst to Derby train. Once again, 73138 tags along. The distinctive front end of the 73 approaches Acton Central along with the rest of it in May 2011. 31233 is on the back. On occasions, Network Rail has hired in AC locos. 86101 and 87002, for instance, were used on a test train to Stansted Airport as a diesel might have set off the fire alarms. Oh, it's a good job there weren't any airports in steam days. The ACs arrived back at Cambridge after their trip to the tarmac. Hunters after old locomotives have also learned to keep their eyes peeled for the movement of other locomotives, known in the jargon as a convoy. Here, for example, 37603 hauls 605, 261 and 612 through Warwick Parkway while en route from Eastleigh to Carnforth. .37087 is towing 47841 from Eastleigh to Barrow Hill at Leamington Spa. Another Eastleigh to Carnforth move. 37603 shifting 20303, 313, 307 and 314 through Culham near Oxford. The Eastleigh exodus continues. 37611 with 2315 at 302 and 308, heading north to Crewe at Leamington. .47839 tows 805, 812 and 815 from Derby to Washwood Heath at, yes, North Staffordshire Junction. 47739 moves 56301 and 302 from Doncaster to Hitching after the going bust of Fastline Freight. 86218 was heading for Bulgaria, but it needed a tow from 47727 on the first leg of its journey from Long Marston to Crewe in November 2010. The compulsory stop at the Honeybourne platform after emerging from the storage site. (31233) hauls 73107 from Selhurst to Derby at Syston. Why? I have no idea. But repaying the compliment, in a manner of speaking, 73138 tows 31602 along the Midland Main Line in July 2010. When 47813 and 828 pitched up at the Barrow Hill sites, they were propelled in by 2905 and 901. Although it remains as fiendishly hard to find as in BR days, visitors to Barrow Hill will never be disappointed by the variety to be found there. Now here's a weird one, 37688 and 069, top and tailing 602 and 608 on the exit from Barrow Hill, heading for Crewe Gresty Bridge in April 2011. (2301 and 302, top and tail with 304 and 305, and all to move 66716 from Peterborough to Longport. 37676 and 685, top and tail network rails 86902 and 901 between Bescot and Derby in March 2011. The movement of locos to and from diesel galas has thrown up some brilliant convoys in recent years, like this one, 47580 at Langham, motivating 26007, 45133 and D172 from Barrow Hill to a Mid-Norfolk gala. (47826) hauls 31128, D172 again, and 20048 from Butterley to a Nene Valley gala in March 2010. For the May event in 2011 at Great Central Nottingham, 31454 brought in 56383 and 311. This is the start of the branch at Loughborough. long-term Mean Valley resident 4106 has now moved to Washwood Heath. Here it is en route at Cossington behind 31190, the first time the 40 had been on the main line for almost 20 years. As well as the bums on seats requirements, there's also a healthy trade in shifting vast quantities of fresh air around the country, known in the jargon as empty coaching stock movements, and another likely hotspot for the more mature locomotive. West Coast Royal Scotsman stock heads for Carnforth at Carlisle behind 47786. The same loco passes Claypole with ECS from Norwich to Carnforth. On the same day, 47826 and 804 clock up more fresh air miles with this movement from Hitchin to Carnforth at Frinkley Lane. $47,580 has been hired in to help out West Coast, and here moves stock to Norwich before a Nenter charter. $47,804 can be found on the back. 37706 at North Staffordshire Junction with more West Coast ECS heading for Crewe. It's no wonder charter seats are so expensive these days. With fewer stop providers, the coaches can travel hundreds of miles just to reach the tour's starting point, incurring considerable cost, which inevitably gets passed on to the paying punter. Oh, what a surprise. Would never have happened in the days of British Rail. A West Coast 37 incurs cost at Derby. $33,207 partners $37,515 at Harrowden Junction while moving stock from Eastleigh to Hochley. As West Coast facilitates steam charters, scenes like this can often occur on the ECS moves. 37706 and Hall Class 5972 passing Hatton while running from Southall to Carnforth. $47,826 shifts ECS from Holbeck to Southall at Stoke Tunnel. A pair of DRS-37s, 038 and 601, help West Coast 47-500 heave this load of fresh air up the Licky Bank while returning from Bristol to Carnforth. (47-802) and 712 with the stop move from Carlisle to Barrow Hill at Scropton. Shed 414 hitches a ride. Huh, GM3, eh? (47-815) and 839 head for Derby with more empties at North Staff Junction. (31-601) and 454 arrive at Carlisle with the stop for the Fenland Circular Charter in March 2011. The event that's caused the greatest commotion in recent years is GB Rail Freight's hiring of Beaver Sports Deltic 22 for the Alcan workings in Northumbria. A contract calling for 2 loaded runs from North Blythe to Linemouth on weekdays, as well as returning the empties and associated light engine movements. The Deltic began this work on the 11th of April 2011 and is here captured running light from North Blythe at Freeman's Crossing. And here it is at the Linemouth terminal waiting to leave with the empties. The first part of a 9-mile journey to North Blythe involves a massive horseshoe curve. Linemouth Power Station and the North Sea provide the backdrop. Now, deviating from the script a little here, I may as well tell you right from the outset that I thoroughly disapprove of this. The Deltic is a 100 miles an hour passenger machine designed to run at high speed all day on level track. Using it on mundane freight work like this is like bringing back Concord to spray crops. But I expect I may be slightly out of tune on this one. Everyone except me seems highly amused by D9000's latest role, which is why Visions, without apology, is devoting such a big chunk of this programme to the Alcan work. Meanwhile, back at the script, a very restrictive 5 miles an hour speed limit on the big curve gave cameramen a chance to chase the train. This is the end of the curve, and the speed slack as the line heads inland towards Ashington. The former Woodthorne Colliery can be seen in the background. The route then heads south through the town of Ashington, the birthplace of World Cup winners Bobby and Jackie Charlton. Whoa. As the line curves away from the town, North Seaton's signal box stands just behind where the cameraman is standing. Just after North Seaton, the railway crosses the River Wansbeck. The wrapping around the piers is to protect workers cleaning up the viaduct. After crossing the viaduct, the line heads back towards the coast at March's House Junction. After West Sleepburn, the train approaches the loop at Freeman's Crossing, where it will have to wait, as there's a one loco only rule through Camas to North Blythe. Coal also goes down the branch to Battleship Wharf, so the Alcan trains can wait here for some time, as can the coal trains when the Alcan is on the route. After waiting for a Fort William bound Alcan to depart behind a 66, the Deltic finally continues its journey. Multiple camera angles capture the arrival and shunting at the North Blythe Alcan terminal. The terminal and siding stand on a headland, with the River Blythe on one side and the North Sea on the other. As soon as the train arrives, 22 uncouples and runs round. In case you're wondering about the hybrid paint job, this is a recreation of the York Railtour livery inflicted on the loco in its final months of BR service. The scheme was revived for D9000's birthday celebrations and is today regarded as hugely nostalgic, rather than, bloody hell, what's that? The wagons are propelled to the loading silos. In the final shot at North Blythe, the 800-ton loaded train comes off the North Blythe line at Freeman's Crossing as it heads back to Ashington. After 5 weeks of chugging around at the Blythe end of the Alcan traffic, 22 came off hire and headed for Scotland in readiness for the Carl of Lockhouse charter you saw earlier. But GB Rail Freight spotted another opportunity to use the Deltic on Monday the 30th of May on the Fort William to Moss End leg of the aluminium train. The day before, the loco ran light up the West Highland line to get into position. The weather wasn't great, but this is Scotland with summer approaching, so no one should be the least bit surprised. All the wagon shunting at the Alcan terminal made for an interesting departure from Moss End. Also not the least bit surprising. On the run south, the Deltic approaches the famous horseshoe curve. And in this final shot approaches County March Summit. And those are the old girls in the railway care home. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did.